So I love the Silent Hill 2 remake. I'm not afraid to admit I was skeptical going into this game, and I wasn't sure how the original would translate into this new experience. Fortunately, to me it feels like the Silent Hill 2 remake is as successful as it could have possibly been, and that's in no small part to Akira Yamaoka's work on the soundtrack. Akira Yamaoka has been a steady presence in the Silent Hill series, and his music is an important and iconic aspect of Silent Hill's distinct atmosphere. He has worked as composer on every main Silent Hill title, all the way up until Silent Hill Downpour, released in 2012. And now that the series is entering a bit of a renaissance, he's back making music for new titles coming out, including the Silent Hill 2 remake. Since playing the remake, I was excited to get my hands on the game's soundtrack and take a listen to all of the tracks Akira Yamaoka created for the game. What I wasn't expecting was a massive 93-track long album to hit streaming platforms in November, immediately followed by an even larger 94-track extra edition, consisting of all of the music that couldn't fit on the first album. At first, I had thought there must be tracks that appear on both albums because 187 tracks would be a lot for a video game soundtrack release, even for a game as big as the Silent Hill 2 remake, but nope, these are completely distinct albums with no crossover. When I finally dived deep into what's included in the release, I quickly discovered I'm gonna have to make a video on this. Now, in the past, I've spent a lot of time going through every difference between the original Silent Hill 2 and its ports released as part of the Silent Hill HD collection. You can check out my breakdown of all of that in a previous video if you're interested. It was a ton of fun putting my obsessive love for Silent Hill to work when making those videos, so I figured why not spend countless hours going through the wealth of new Silent Hill music and see what kind of details, references, and other useful information I could find hidden within its 187 tracks, and hopefully finish with a complete outline of where each track actually plays in-game so that listeners can better organize how they'd like to tackle the soundtrack. And I do encourage you to listen to it. In this video, I'll spend some time looking at which tracks are remixes of old tracks from the original, which tracks from the original didn't make the cut, and any other musical reference I can find. But before going into the game, first let me take a moment to discuss the soundtrack release itself, because there are some interesting aspects that I noticed right off the bat. The first thing I noticed when listening to the direct remixes of old tracks from the original, such as Theme of Laura or Angel's Thanatos, they definitely stood out, but otherwise there are a lot of new tracks here and there. Comparing the track list from the original soundtrack, you can see some of the names have been changed. They seem to be in similar order, but there are some noticeable omissions. In total, 18 tracks from the original are remixed for the new game, and 7 more are directly pulled from the original into the remake in various capacities, though I'll discuss this point a little later. That leaves A World of Madness, Prosonic Fairy Tale, No One Loves You, Terror in the Depths of the Fog, and Pianissimo Epilogue as tracks that didn't make it into the remake in some capacity. But what about all the new music written for the game? In the process of making this video, I wanted to make sure I could place where each track plays in the game to get a whole picture of how the soundtracks are organized. And to answer the question, how can you derive this much music from the game? These are big albums, and in order to keep track of what's playing in the video, I'll always include the track number beside the title, with the first digit representing the disc number and the second representing the track. Also, to prevent things from getting too confusing, the extra edition of the soundtrack is going to be listed as discs 4, 5, and 6. The second thing you may notice when listening to the soundtrack is that it doesn't appear to be in order of when it plays in-game, and the naming of the tracks, while amazing and I love them all, make it tough to figure out when in-game they show up. There are rare occasions of a track name being descriptive, but mostly they have names like Ephemeral Nihilism or Enigmatic Dolor, or my personal favorite, Ontological Quandary. On top of that, many tracks share their first word in the title with each other, which could be fine, except their use in-game doesn't relate to one another at all. Anyways, that's enough whinging about titles. When we actually get into listening to it, I noticed quite a few tracks I don't remember hearing during my playthroughs. That's because after combing through the game multiple times, I found 78 tracks across the 2 albums that I could not, for the life of me, find where they play in-game. Now, this is just based off my own playthroughs, and it is very possible I could have missed 1 or 2, but 78? I'll put a list up on screen right now in case anyone is hopelessly addicted to this game like I am, and would like to know which ones I couldn't find. Feel free to let me know where any of these tracks play in-game, if at all. Anyways, to me, either these tracks exist in an earlier build of the game before it was patched, or the soundtracks include tons of alternate bonus material that wasn't able to make it into the game entirely. Now, I'd love to throw out some baseless fan speculation for a moment and highlight a few tracks I couldn't locate in-game. Again, this is pure speculation based only off of what I'm hearing in the soundtrack, but to my ear, a good number of the unused tracks reference material from other earlier Silent Hill games, making them way more suited for a Silent Hill 1 or 3 remake over 2. For example, Ephemeral Morning, which I couldn't find in-game, sounds like it's referencing the dark, breathing ambience that plays during the first Silent Hill's transition to darkness. Or how about Silent Hill 3's more industrial, noisy battle music? Chimerical Paradoxes and Fading Epitaphs are 2 tracks that would be much more at home in a Silent Hill 3 remake. The duality of Love and Loss directly reuses the choir from Silent Hill 3's Prayer that you hear in the background. Does this mean Yamaoka could have been writing tracks for potential future remakes of the original series? Probably not, but it is nice to hear other parts of Silent Hill's early history pop up in the 2 remake. Hell, even some tracks that made it in reuse older samples from series past. However, while it is nice to be able to hear completely new tracks not in the game, on the flip side of the coin, there are quite a number of tracks that play during the game that are unfortunately missing in the soundtrack release. Now, the Silent Hill soundtracks have never included every track from the game. With the remake, I'd be fine with the omissions if it weren't for the massive track list we have already. It feels like there should have been room for everything, so I'd be lying if I didn't say I was slightly disappointed everything didn't make it on. Okay, that's the end of my rant. I don't want it to come across like I'm complaining about having too much fantastic Silent Hill music. So to summarize, we have 187 interestingly named, masterfully created tracks written for Silent Hill 2, separated between 2 versions, organized in no particular order. Some are tracks that aren't featured in the game, and the game has tracks that aren't featured on the soundtrack. It was a big task trying to organize this beast, so with the help of some trusty spreadsheets, let's jump into the game and see what we can find. Right from the beginning of Silent Hill 2 Remake, we easily start to hear tracks from the original game referenced. Yamaoka and the whole sound team at Bloober has done a fantastic job maintaining the original sound of Silent Hill by taking sounds and motifs from the original and weaving them into the game. Now, I'd like to spend the second half of this video going through every instance where a piece from the original is used, as well as any other musical reference I could find that's more hidden than the straightforward remixes I showed earlier.
Even though our life together had to end like this, I still wouldn't trade it for the world. Well, this letter has gone on too long, so I'll say goodbye.
I feel like it would also be worth showing a compilation of the areas in the game whose music didn't make it into the soundtrack release. But before I do, I really need to quickly discuss the battle music in the game. So in the soundtrack, there are about 35 tracks I would describe as sounding like they belong to boss battles or enemy encounter sections, and only 7 of them can be found in-game. 3 of them belong to the 3 phases of the final boss, 2 to the Pyramid Head fight, 1 during the Pyramid Head section in Labyrinth's desolate area, and the last one during the battle sections of the ruined area, which, as a side note, actually gets 2 additional variations in the soundtrack that we don't get to hear in-game. Unfortunately, these are the only in-game tracks featured in the release. The rest are completely new compositions, meaning the incredible music that plays during your fight with Fleshlip, or the fight with Eddie, as well as any enemy encounter, will not be found in the soundtrack. Other than those 2 boss encounters, the rest of the missing music is mostly found in puzzle rooms. So for the last section of my video, I'm going to show a compilation of the rest of the missing music.
is that?
Well, what do you know? A stroll in the rain. How romantic.
Maria, what are you talking about?
I'm trying to keep things light, James. Just you and me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Alright, that just about wraps up everything I have to say about the Silent Hill 2 Remake soundtrack. Hopefully now you have a fuller picture of what's included in the release. I found listening to a curated version of it that organizes the tracks in order of when they appear in-game helped me appreciate the work that went into it even more. I'll include a link in the description to my spreadsheet in case anyone is interested in listening to the soundtrack in-game order. Anyways, thanks for watching.